Why are human rights important globally? I tend to ask myself this question from time to time, and it reminds me of a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. Countries make and ratify treaties. However, real change must come when human rights are granted to everybody across the world. But what does she mean by this? What she means by this is that the concept of nations creating treaties could be for a variety of reasons, whether it's to end a war, uh, involved with foreign trade, or just to align with political ideals. However, when human rights are granted to everybody across the world, that is the single way to assure that humans prosper in peace. Across the world, there are many regimes in which human rights violations are still prevalent today. These truths can be found on the faces of starved Sudanese children, poor Afghan women under Taliban rule, and the thousands of Indians in slavery till this day. Today, I want to give recognition to a courageous organization that for the past 43 years has helped people in these situations and millions more like them. But just before I do delve deeper into this organization, by show of hands, does anybody know what human rights are exactly? So, to put it into simple terms, according to Benedetta Birdie's talk with TED Ed, the idea of human rights is that each of us, no matter who we are or where we were born, we are all entitled to the same universal and inalienable rights and freedoms. Now, we in the United States are entitled to many rights and freedoms in part of our Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the UN. Some of these rights include freedom of speech, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom to pursue education, and even the freedom to practice any religion that you'd like. Now, if you grew up in the United States or live in the United States, these freedoms and rights seem very similar and very familiar. However, for millions across the globe, these things seem so foreign and sound like some sort of distant dream in the distance. And it is all because of their governments and lawmakers imposing these restrictions upon them. Now, there is an organization that is a prominent figure and fighter for human rights, and they are known as Human Rights First. According to their CEO and president and US Army veteran, Michael Breen, our primary weapon in this battle for human rights is partnering with various coalitions and challenging the US government to live up to its own ideals. They also meet in front of Congress and the UN and pressure legislative reform. They believe that American leadership is essential to the global struggle of human rights, and they work to harness that American influence in order to secure those freedoms. Just this past year, the US military was able to evacuate thousands of Afghan allies with the help of Human Rights First. These allies consisted of people that gave information about the Taliban, judges, lawyers, lawmakers, as well as women and children. This is a great significant victory in the 43 years that they have been an organization, but it's not their only one. In the past 43 years, they have been responsible for many victories, such as expanding the visa program to Iraqis, drafting the Refugee Act of 1980, and the 2009 ban of torture under the Obama administration, as well as exposing many human rights violations in countries like the Philippines, Morocco, Somalia, Haiti, Cambodia, And the list just goes on, according to their website at humanrightsfirst.org. It is victories such as these that define the integral purpose of Human Rights First and the positive effects from the ripple into our futures and to create a better world for us to live in. It is also important to remind ourselves of atrocities that have happened in the past, such as World War II. To remind ourselves is to help us to move forward from these things. To remind ourselves is to remember that if it wasn't for things like World War II, the United Nations would have never been created. It wouldn't have brought us closer together as nations to bring these issues forward and see how we can resolve them. Because of atrocities such as World War II, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was also drafted in Paris in 1948, underlining 30 human rights that are minimum, that are essential for every human being on Earth. Now, try to imagine a world where everybody has these universal human rights acknowledged. Doing this, we are able to move forward as a nation, as many nations. We're able to be free from discrimination, racism of any kind, because of our religion, ethnicity, way of life. We are able to crack down on issues that we have been facing for many years, such as global warming, giving people access to food and clean water. Giving human rights to everybody helps us better go about these issues so that we not only save billions around the world, but we keep our future generations from inheriting those problems from us. Now, in summary, not only could Human Rights First challenge the US to live up to its own ideals, but they can also influence the world through these ideals with your help. Now, in this world, there are many rights granted to specific people, such as doctors having their own set of rights, police officers, even the president. However, what sets human rights apart is that they apply to everybody, and that is what makes them so significant. So with your help today, if you are able to join the cause and join Human Rights First, we're able to make a difference today. Thank you very much for listening.